This time on STV, it's all about the Cat Catalyst, and it all starts right now. STV is brought to you by Yamaha, revs your heart. 509, fueling your passion. And by Polaris, think outside. The Catalyst really fits the saying, good things come to those that wait perfectly. And Arctic Cat faithful have been waiting a long time for the Brain Trust in Thief River Falls to finally deliver a new model to dealerships after what was one of the longest run-ups of a new sled that I can remember. The Catalyst first made its debut at Heydays and then at snowmobile shows through the fall of 2022. Sales began in the spring of 23 with sleds delivered just in time for the 2024 riding season. Talk about building anticipation. The pandemic definitely had something to do with the slow rollout of the Catalyst, but Cat wanted to do something to keep the fire stoked about its new machine, so we ended up with this long, drawn-out marketing strategy. Teasing might be a better way to describe the rollout of the Catalyst, but no matter how you describe it, there was just a huge amount of anticipation for the first ride on this sled. I finally got my chance in the spring of 23 at Snowshoot in West Yellowstone, Montana, and by this time, I was expecting a lot from this sled.
All right, 2024 Arctic Cat Catalyst sled, 600. Got a couple of kilometers on this thing so far. Let's go for a ride. All right, here we go. You're gonna go to this camera now. All right, so I just wanted to ride this thing and kind of give you my impressions, so here it is. Let's start with really the seating position on this thing. I mean, it's all new bodywork, and when you're kind of down here in the pocket, like kind of up on the tank, I mean, this thing is super narrow. You can haul off to the side really good, even though we're just going straight down the trail right now. But I mean, the pocket here is absolutely great. Lots of room for your knees. I do find just, if you're really off the inside, the very back of the cowl, you know, does get into your leg a little bit. So, you know, good boots, maybe some shin pads and stuff like that would be good on this machine as well, but that's pretty normal for a lot of today's sleds. This thing feels really good. Seat's nice and firm too. You know, you can kind of really get into the knees and squeeze nice. Beautiful, I love it. For the handlebar position, it's got an adjustable riser on it. It's a little too far back for the way I like it. I would want to roll it forward a bit, but you know, it does feel really good. The next thing, let's talk about the power. C-Tech 600. This thing is a little ripper of a motor. I mean, even at low RPM, it sounds good. It's not lazy. It revs nice. You know, really good. Now, if you're coming off an 850 or something like that, or a turbocharged sled, you know, it's going to feel a little lazier than that. But I mean, honestly, this 600 is good. And it's quick too. I mean, it's not a slouch. The other thing I really like that hasn't changed, I've always liked the brake system on these sleds. You know, one finger, it's got really good feel. The snow today is a little slippery, if that makes sense. So, you know, breaking in the corners, it's lively in the back end. You can really get it to flick out quickly. So, got to be a little careful on that. Kind of feel it there. That's a little bit of a lockup. So coming in under threshold, braking into the corner, you got to be a little careful. It's not a lot of brake pressure, which is really nice. Now, suspension wise, right now we're on full soft. I'm gonna adjust from the handlebar here. See if I can do it. So there's the attack right there, soft. Gonna go medium. And of course you got 3 settings, back up to firm. And you can actually watch the chassis. I'm gonna go through this corner here. There's some braking bumps and some chatter in the middle, but you can kind of see how the sled is a little bouncy. Not bad, but just a little bit. But if we go down, we bring it right down, we'll go right to soft. Generally on all this stuff I go full soft. It just seems to get more grip that way. But if you watch, it's a little bit hard to see, but the sled is actually smoother, noticeably smoother when you're watching the windshield bounce along. You feel it in your seat as well. Big difference. And what I really like, when you go into a corner fast, you can roll onto the brakes, you can get the chassis to pitch in, and it just cars. Again, great sled for hanging on off the inside. Well, there goes the camera again. Apparently, it's still a little rough for the camera on the windshield. We're gonna go pick that thing up, and we'll get it. We'll get it set up again. There it is. No damage. It's all good. Let's do that. Maybe do it with a bare finger. There we go. So good. So let's try this again here. There we go. We'll see if that holds. This little cubby hole here, it is warm in there. It's heated. So that, good little addition right there. There's a set of goggles in there. Can't get much more than a set of goggles in there, but you get a little bit of stuff. But yeah, let's go again. So we're on soft, which is the setting that I like on the sleds, because I find it gives me way more grip going into the corners. It allows the suspension to work and be compliant. Otherwise, it just sort of is like stuck firm and doesn't allow the skis to follow the terrain. Same with the rear suspension. This is changing everything at once. But so far, I'm very, very impressed. You know, do hope eventually it will come. I mean, other motor choices, other package choices, it's all coming. But for right now, this is going to be one of my new favorite rockets.
Coming up after the break, we're going to get into the details of the Catalyst chassis with Troy Halverson, Director of Product Strategy for Arctic Cat Snowmobiles. This segment is brought to you by 509.
The new Catalyst, there's a number of key things that we're shooting for. Centralized design to make it easier to ride for the operator who gets on. Getting that mass centralization, lower center of gravity really gives the operator a chance to maneuver the sled without just riding it. They're in control. That was a key thing. Lightweight, you know, we did a number of things like belt drive. You know, every part we tried to maximize the efficiency of it to keep the weight down, but also maintain the strength. But also really look at the plastic come together to where it's easily removable for access to service the vehicle. We have a quarter turn for the seat, so it's easy to take the seat off and you can get to the battery if it's a model that has electric start. So that was a big thing, to be durable, easy to service. Another big key for this platform is the steering and the suspension systems per what segment that the vehicle is part of. Like the mountains are going to require a different steering system, different suspension that you would see on a trail sled. So you try to be common where you can be, but be different where you need to be. So steering system, suspension, how they work together is very different between the mountain and the trail and the crossover. So we really tried to key on what's important to those segments. Rider ergonomics was another thing that was very important to us. We feel our current sled does very well in that, but there's always opportunities to make things better. You know how the gas tank is sculpted to interact with the rider's legs, and really wanted to shorten up the gas tank too, so we moved it forward a little bit and didn't go as far back on the tunnel so that the gas isn't sloshing around as much, so you get a more concise platform and the weight distribution is more stable. So things like that is, you know, stuff we really focused on, as well as the styling of the sled. We wanted it to be something when you look at it, you know that it's brand new platform. But we wanted to keep those styling cues of what is an Arctic Cat. You know, we take a lot of pride in our styling, and we've done things like with the new LED headlight is asymmetrical, so it's that people really know that when that sled's coming down the trail or in the mountains, you can see that it's an Arctic Cat. So those are the kind of things that we tried to push for. The first step was letting people see it, because you know, you look at it and we see it every day, so you start getting numb to it a little bit. So there's always a little concern that people are going to like it. It's going to be, you know, something that's going to get them excited. So when we saw they were excited by just the visuals of it, that made us, you know, more excited yet to actually get people to experience it, because it looks good, it rides even better. So it's going to be great.
Coming up right after this, we're going to run the Catalyst through Afterburn. This segment is brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. In all my years in the snowmobile media, I've never seen a slower rollout of a new model as I have with the 2024 Arctic Cat Catalyst. Now, drawings and rumors of this machine have been circulating in the industry since 2021, so long ago it felt like this machine was never going to actually exist. It seemed as though this new chassis was some mythical urban legend like a jackalope or even the more elusive Sam Squanch. But unlike these creatures, the Catalyst can now be found in the wild, on the trails with ZRs, in the mountains with the M's, and everywhere in between having a riot. But with the painfully long build-up for this new machine, expectations had an equally long time to build, and if this sled fell anywhere even just a bit short of what Cat fans were hoping it would be, success of the sled would be over before it even had a chance to start. After the first rip on this machine, though, any doubts about it being the beginning of the next Arctic Cat legend just disappeared. And the whole experience centers around you as a rider. The ZR Catalyst puts you right in the sweet spot for spirited trail rides on every type of trail you can think of to point the skis at. With the drop at the front of the seat and footwells you can easily lock your feet into, you can effortlessly hang copious amounts of ham low off the inside to carve corners, and then get up on the bars to tackle those endless Sunday afternoon whoop sections on the way back to home base. Plus, the chassis feels incredibly intuitive to ride, and just after a few miles on the sled, you really begin to feel the machine working below you on the trail, and how you can move your body around on the chassis to simply make it dance. I can't describe the euphoric relief I felt after riding the Catalyst for the first time, because it was even better than I was hoping for. I think the last time I can remember having that feeling was in the wake of losing my virginity. Up front is the new AWS 42 suspension that boasts just over 8 inches of travel with Cat's IFP 1.5 shocks, and a progressive steering ratio that as a rider will deliver more control and feeling into the handlebars. Options here include the attack system with Fox IQS dampers, and if there was any complaint I have about the suspension that's on the stock ZR, is that it's ever so slightly harsh at times, but the upgrade to the Fox system solves that. In the rear suspension, geometry has been set to balance the new rider position, which is further forward on the chassis compared to the old platform. The slide action 137-inch suspension on the Catalyst takes the rear one more step forward in its performance and expectations. Here too though, the base ZR package is good, but the attack system is definitely better. Don't get me wrong though, the base package suspension on the ZR is pretty awesome, but if you can option up to the attack system, that's better if the pocketbook allows. Now speaking of options, when it comes to engine displacement sizes on the first edition Catalyst, you can have any engine displacement you want as long as it's a 600. Initially feeling a little gaslit that this new great sled was going to be limited with only a 600cc power plant available. All that changed when I rode it though. While the C-Tech 2 engine won't propel the Catalyst to straight line speeds of Plaid, ludicrous speed is still achievable. I credit the new chassis that's able to make more effective use of the 125 ponies inside the vacuum sealed bodywork. The precision of the Catalyst on the trails is so good, it means you can brake less going into the corners and maintain a higher speed both through and exiting the bends. The engine also feels super flicky through the new Adapt CVT clutch system as well, which is not only self-adjusting, but with its narrower design allows for the bodywork to be that extra little bit narrower too. Altogether, this package absolutely rips. About the only drawback to the 600 is to maintain speeds, you're going to be fairly deep into the throttle at all times, especially when you're riding with other machines that are 850s or turbo sleds, and I think because of this, your fuel range is going to suffer. Now, I'm not 100% certain with this machine. I do have to spend more time with it out in the wild, but I have noticed this machine to be fairly thirsty when compared to other sleds, and that's something you're going to have to think about if you got big gaps between fuel stops. But this is a small problem, easily solved by carrying a little fuel can when needed, something that's not uncommon nowadays on snowmobiles. And if this is one concession I have to make to ride this machine, I'm not concerned at all. Overall, the new Catalyst is the machine that we've been waiting for from Arctic Cat. Now, I said off the top that the Catalyst is going to be the next Arctic Cat legend, and I truly believe it will be. So, the future looks pretty bright for folks that have green in their blood, especially as the Catalyst moves throughout the Arctic Cat lineup with different variations and engines. By now, we've all heard of the new 858 coming for model year 2025. So after the break, my talk is going to continue with Troy about this new mill. This segment is brought to you by Kimpex. So far, everything we've been covering on the 2024 Catalyst has been with the 600 engine. But right from the beginning of the product planning for this chassis, there's been a new engine in the works, which we all know now is an all-new 858.
This year we introduced the new 858 engine as well as the new Arctic Cat G8 display. So it was super exciting to be able to show everybody that. The crowd was huge. People are extremely excited and energetic, so it was a great experience. Yeah, when the project started, the Catalyst project, it was intended to be with a brand new engine and a new platform in the same year. So as we were developing the sled, obviously we went through pandemic, and there was things that lead times for parts was lengthened. So, you know, it's critical when you're developing a new engine. There's a lot of steps that you have to go through and different levels of tooling, and we were not getting the tooled parts concurrently with the Catalyst platform that we were testing, so we needed to make a decision whether we delay the entire project back another year to let the engine catch up, or we come out with the 600 first and keep working on the 858 knowing that it was going to come the following year. Knowing that that engine segment is one of the largest segments within snowmobiling, so it's extremely important. So I think we made the right call, come out with Catalyst first with the 600, but continue to work on our new 858 to get it right so that when we could get it into the Catalyst platform that it was all ready to go. The benefit of us doing a laydown engine obviously was the air intake and the exhaust coming out the front of the engine. So we can really get that engine down into the chassis, into the engine bay as low and as close to the rider as possible. That's where we make up our room. We redesigned the new crankcase for the 858. We're able to integrate the mounts into the bottom of the case. So instead of having a bracket that attaches to the mount, that attaches to the sled, now it's just the mounts right attached to the bottom of the crankcase, and then that's attached to the engine bay. So the engineers did a great job of coming up with ways to, like, you know, a simple one like the recoil rope. You know, how do you get the recoil rope from where it is to where the pull cord is? You know, we put a little wheel in there and it goes up and then comes back to the rider. So you do things like that that aren't necessarily ordinary, but you don't compromise. You get the engine where it needs to be and then give you the room that you need to be.
Very cool.
The amount of change that happens within a certain span of time, it's probably more than any other industry that I know of. You know, you cannot stand still. You have to do the next level. So our guys are continually working on improvements, trying to make things better. And the great thing about engineering is that we use the product, we're out in the field, we're comparing against other product, and we find things that work better. So it's kind of that old saying, you don't know what you don't know. But when you get out and you work and you put it through its paces, like I look back to the Alpha 1 suspension, you know, that project was not a product that said, hey, let's go design a new rear suspension. It was an engineer, Andy Beavis, thinking, hey, I think this might work, prototyping, doing a proof of concept. Hey, I think there's some value here, and then continually finessing it and making it the product it needed to be. We'll always do that. That is part of our jobs, and we'll never be happy. Kirk Hibbert, who most people know, somebody asked him the question, what's your favorite sled? He said, I don't know, I haven't built it yet. So that's our job, that's what we do.
Even though the 600 is a great engine, the new 858 is going to turn the Catalyst up to 11. And just like before, Arctic Cat is teasing us with early announcements, which means I'm already looking forward to pulling the trigger on this machine in model year 2025. But that's going to be in the future, just like the next episode of STV. Closed captioning is brought to you by Scott Snowmobile Goggles. STV has been brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Wherever life takes you, Best Western is there. Ultimax Belts, performance driven, performance proven. And by Ford F-Series, Canada's best-selling line of pickup trucks for 58 years.